No, I can't see.
Do you want to try to fix that or just go like that?
I'll do what I did last time.
Okay.
That's better. Okay, let me just give you an introduction. Okay, this evening we welcome Mike McBride from the Hill Country Archaeological Association.
And Galt School.
And the Galt School. I've got that as well down here. Mike's a lifelong Texan. Has dedicated over 45 years to pharmacy practice and management. You know, a world away from archaeology. But he's the founder of RX Partners Pharmacy, a specialty pharmacy company with operations in San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston. He retired in 2018, and Mike is a board member of the Hill Country Archaeological Society in Kerrville, Texas, having served as president from 2017 to 2023. Previously, he was president and board chairman of the Dallas Archaeological Society, which now merged with the North Texas Archaeological Society. Mike is also on the board of directors of the Galt School of Archaeological Research. Currently, he's principal investigator for the HCAA's Crying Woman Ranch project in Kerr County, a site which many of us have actually participated in with Mike and his folks. A site that focuses on Paleo-Indian period occupations at the site. He's previously been a principal investigator for several other field projects in Dallas, Kerr, and Gillespie counties. He is currently a co-developer of the Pine Ridge Preceramic project in northern Belize, which is what he's going to talk to us about this evening. Please welcome Mike McBride. Was my shoe?
If one of you 10-year-olds want to jump up here and give us a. Don't leave the old people in charge. There we go.
Got it? There you go.
Yeah, you need to. Yes, boy.
Where is it?
I'm
Down here.
again. Do this thing up here again.
Can't.
Yeah.
It's not there. I think you just have to go with it. Okay. I think you just have to go.
Yeah. Let's see. Can y'all see that okay? Yeah.
What screen say?
Yeah. How do I get rid of that? It's up at the top. Oh,
That far over.
yeah. And then. I think it's yeah, display. How's that? Better. Yeah, thank you, Bob, and thank you to the HAS for having me again. It's always a real pleasure to get out with our colleagues in the avocational archaeology community. Just as a matter of reference, I gave a talk on the Pine Ridge project to HAS last year, and I believe that longer version, because this is going to be a little bit focused tonight. But I think it's on there on the HAS YouTube channel, if I'm not mistaken. It gives I do a lot of the history of how the project developed, and a few more things about how we got set up and everything like that. So, but just a little bit of my colleague John Lose has been within the studies of Central America and Maya, the Maya area for quite a while, and especially with Paleo-Indian period, that period of occupation, those periods of occupation in the Maya area. So when we started developing this project about 3 years ago, about 3.5 years ago, he brought a lot of past archaeological experience and scholarship about that period, which he was, if I'm right, was really kind of looking for a project like this. And I worked in the Maya area, but mainly in the classic period sites and whatnot, but being more of a lithics person and a flint knapper or whatever, to start discovering and recognizing some of the lithics that were coming out of Belize that were true, purely Clovis period. Everybody know what the Clovis period is? About 13,000 years ago. That period was really, really unique, especially in Central America. So this is where we are, up in the kind of the northwest part of the country. The gray area is Mexico. We're separated by the Rio Hondo in northern Belize, and it's a very rural area, as you'll see. This area around, and our site is located right around the village of August Pine Ridge. It's a rural village. There's a lot of originally Mexican families that over the decades migrated into northern Belize. And right in the 1950s, the Mennonite community started moving in, I think from Europe and Canada, to establish farms and everything there in northern Belize. From what we understand, this area, which is a very, very large sand ridge, it's fluffy white beach sand. There's several meters of it over bedrock. But this place, from what we understand, also used to be a very ancient pine forest. Some of the pine trees are still there. Most of them have been, just bulldozed out or cut down for logs or whatever. And so what we're left with is, I'd say miles of this relatively flat ground that has been, they've cleared it for cattle, or they cut down all the trees. But the main industry that arose during the 50s was mining this really pure white sand for construction purposes. So this has been going on. This sand mining in the area has been going on for over 70 years now, and it's an industry that supports the laborers. It supports the village, just because a lot of the guys in the village, this is how they make their living. And basically, the sand mining is all done by hand. There's no backhoes out there. There's no front loaders. The sand is dug by hand, loaded in their older brother's truck. This is our crew, the Torres brothers. They'll get an agreement with a contractor who's building a building, and there's a lot of cinder block building that takes a lot of concrete. A lot of concrete takes a lot of sand. So that's kind of how how the economy kind of works. And then, the workers there, their older brother in this crew, their older brother will say, I'm coming in with the truck, they'll go out about the half a mile out to the sand pits with their shovels, and about 45 minutes or an hour later, you have a truck full of sand, and it goes off. This is where the artifacts are coming from. These guys are not, going across a landscape. Number one, there's no Maya buildings here. The Maya did not settle here because that sand will not grow corn. the roots of Maya and a lot of developing cultures was developing agriculture. And the Maya especially, when, corn culture got rolling in Central America about 1500 BC. The Maya culture really kind of got rolling around 1000 BC, but they didn't settle here on the sand ridge because they couldn't grow corn. But what we now know is the people way before them, they were inhabiting the sand ridge for thousands of years. So as they're digging this sand, just randomly, they're finding these artifacts. Like I said, they're not looting, they're just finding them. They kind of recognize that they're different, they're worth keeping. And so I'll skip this. I think it's on last year's program. Yeah, there you go. This is how these guys make their living. Yeah. And they'll do, on a good day, they'll do about 5 trucks. Get paid by the truck. So yeah. And yeah, that's it's an interesting group of folks to work with. And so the artifacts that, for years, grandfathers and uncles and whatnot have brought these home back to the village. And what we found, when we first started 3 years ago, was a lot of the household had these boxes of lithic artifacts that they thought were kind of neat and whatnot, and grandpa found them or their uncle found them or whatever. But this is what we were recognizing as really ancient. This is, for the most part, a lot of this stuff there's some Maya stuff mixed in there, but the majority of it is pre-Maya. And when we talk about ceramic, we talked about this pre-ceramic period. Ceramics is pottery. And okay, if you grow corn or other foodstuffs, you need to store it or cook it. So you need to have something to put it in. So that's kind of the genesis of ceramics, basically. And it's linked into agriculture and things like that. There was nothing before about 1000 BC here. So when we talk about pre-ceramic, it's that time period before maize, before the true Maya culture. And it just goes really, really deep in time. So those are the kind of artifacts that we started seeing and figured that this is really unusual. We knew that there was that other let's say Paleo-Indian period artifacts have been found in Belize because they had been documented. But for the most part, they weren't in controlled excavations. They were either found by farmers and brought in or something like that. And there were little onesie-twosies that were spread across the landscape. But when we started seeing, half a dozen of these things all in one collection, one family collection, it was totally unusual and real. We knew it was really, really important because nothing like this had ever occurred, especially in Belize archaeology, much less Central American archaeology. So we started thinking, we were doing some assessment of, okay, these people were living 13,000 years ago. There are 2 river systems near there that were probably, I guess, were there 12,000 years ago. But what we kind of learned was the artifacts were showing up in a little bit more density around these freshwater sources, these bajos that were coming up from the bedrock or whatever, and the remnants of them are still there. So we started looking at the map, and so we identified, where here's the village. There's one main road that goes through there. about 2,000 or 3,000 people live in the village and the surrounding area. So we targeted the areas around the village. This is outside of the village, where we had found these bajos that some of them were still full of water, and our guys, the digging guys, were reporting that they're finding a lot of stones in these areas. So that's where we started our excavation plans. Since the vast majority of the surface there was highly disturbed, highly dug up, highly they'll finish with an area. It's all dug up. It's pitted with these big, pits of sand, and pretty much ruined for anything. And plus the archaeology, the stratigraphy of that sand by all of this activity is totally ruined. So one of our first challenges was to find flat we coined the term paleo islands, and trying to find these plots of ground that had not been dug before, that we could actually start at the surface and put our excavation in a controlled manner to, just like we should be doing. So we did find some spots like that. For the most part, we centered a lot of the excavations around the water sources, and we're having pretty good luck. Although this was more, we were recovering more debitage and things like that, not a whole lot of what we would think is diagnostic stuff. But the thing was that we were out there 3 weeks a year, but they're digging year round. So these guys were continually finding artifacts just as part of their day-to-day work. So anyway, this is kind of what it looks like. That white, I think Bob was talking about the site with all the really loamy sand. This is like Florida beach sand. It's really white, powdery stuff. It goes through the screens really well, so we can get a lot done. And we did find a number of possible occupation sites, little flint knapping stations and things like that, that kind of told us we were in the right place. We had one of our college students with us. We did some of our own preliminary analysis there while we were in Belize as part of her schoolwork. And we've been able also to do some presentations for the local community. Part of what we told the Institute of Archaeology, who lets our permit, we knew we wanted to put an educational component into the project. So we began. We were approached by initially one of the middle school teachers. So, and then I think this last year, we did one presentation to the school kids last year. And I think this year we did 4 or 5, something like that. So it's really kind of cool to get, these kids, they kind of know about the Mayas and things like that, but this gives them a bit of a deeper appreciation for the history of their own people and a history of their country. And then we've had professional and academic colleagues out there as well to do some orientation with them too. So it's been a good success, at least becoming part of that educational process with what we're doing. And then plus, just like this, we've been able to do public talks and plus publish some of our work already on both on our in-house publishing piece, which is on our website, and also just recently a peer-reviewed article in the Belize Institute Journal. So we are able to continue documenting and publishing that way as well. So this is kind of an update of what I talked about last year. We've been at this for 3 years. Every year, our catalog, the number of artifacts that we're able to document, to catalog. We've been really lucky that the Institute has allowed us to export a number of the really good artifacts so we can bring them back, do our own lab work, our own analysis, have really expert colleagues look at them, things like that. So, but every year our catalog grows. And I think I updated this after this year. Just in the paleo, when I say paleo, it's that Clovis period and late paleo period artifacts. I think our count is well over 50 specimens that we're pretty sure we can date to that period. Whereas in the entirety of Belizean archaeology, that catalog was a dozen, handful, maybe 10 pieces over 40 years of archaeology. So that's why this has been so remarkable. So we know that at times the Maya were close by. There's a Maya city to the north of us, another smaller one to the south of us, and then a larger city on the river about 12 or 14 miles away. So there was Maya period traffic in there. And so we do find what we can identify as Maya classic, early classic, whatever, artifacts there. And then we have this transitional piece where it's probably, this is kind of the first stage of agricultural domestication, where they were using these digging tools here, and they're well identified as kind of pre-Maya per se, but they still do kind of indicate kind of the beginning. So we can put them in that period, maybe about 1500 to 1000 BC. Then these big blade artifacts are kind of the same thing. They're a little bit older than those adzes are. We found those. So that period is kind of represented in the lithic samples. And I'll talk a little bit about where does August Pine Ridge, where do these occupations fit in with the rest of the Americas, with the rest of Central America, South America, how is all this fitting in when we're really talking about the first Americans, human migration, human behavior? How did human technology adapt over thousands of years, and as they migrated from region to region, things like that. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And there again, everybody know what a mano and metate is? The corn grinder. That's more classic period, Mesoamerica. I think, I don't know, do we agree that these are kind of precursors? They're older than the mano and metate. They kind of go in that same period of they're just kind of starting out. Some limited agriculture. They've got some maize growing. They need something to grind it up in. So we do have a lot of these stone bowls, mortars and pestles represented, but these are probably in that period, say, 1500 BC. So that period is represented by these ground stone tools. So when we talk about the pre-ceramic lithics, we can start, what we can do is start to understand the catalog and what each of these groups represent. Well, what this is, and we kind of break it up into the late Paleo-Indian period, which is probably 8,000 years ago, back to the Paleo-Indian period. That's the Clovis period, back to about 12 to 13,000 years ago. So when I talk about the late Paleo period, it's after what we'll call the fluted biface horizon. And it's that period of 4,000 or 5,000 years where they were still there, the populations were still growing. And we've got a lot of that period documented here. So what have we learned? We've got a big enough catalog now and enough variety within the artifacts that we are studying and we can analyze, is to start really putting them into groups. In Texas archaeology, we've got all kind of arrowheads, and they're all kind of in groups and they have names. What we're down to now is probably in that late Paleo period, we got 4 general groups, 4 general morphologies. We've got the unfluted lancelets. They kind of look a little bit like Clovis point, thin Clovis points, but they're not fluted. The Pine Ridge points. These are points that we identified early on. They don't appear in any literature anywhere. And so we have been the first to identify them and actually publish them. So we took the opportunity to actually name the point, name the type. The sawmill points were kind of known in a few of them were known in Belize archaeology. We've got a lot of that class, that type. And then the low point is pretty well known in Belize archaeology because there's been a few of those found as well. But we have a ton of those guys. So we're able to at least segregate out these types and start to describe them. That's probably, I think that was extra. So yeah, these unfluted lancelets, there's only one that we know of there on the right that has shown up in the literature, but what we have been able to add to our analysis is another 5 or 6. So this is really a type group. Where it fits in, we're really not sure where it fits in the timeline, but we know it's after the Paleo period because that kind of phased out with the fluted points. And then we've got some kind of outliers of the lancelets. Not really sure what we're making of these. But fitting some of this stuff into the rest of Mesoamerica, the rest of Central America, the closest, just as an example, are these points that came out of southern Mexico, and these were documented about 50 years ago by Scotty McNeish, and they're lancelet. They're not fluted. They're kind of close. There's not really good dating on them, but perhaps other people in the region were making them. These are the August Pine Ridge points. They're certainly, anybody in Texas, they're certainly like nothing we've ever seen in Texas before. But we have enough of them to really start even making a subclass, and this was kind of one of the things that it was one of my ideas of this is type 1, Pine Ridge type 1, and you can see kind of the rounded shoulders on the point. They're triangular blades. They're pretty flat. They're pretty thin. The rounded shoulders come down to a narrow stem. Like certainly nothing we've ever seen in Texas before. So we have type 1. We got a number of specimens of that. And then type 2, these same things, they've got narrow stems, they got triangular bases, they're thin, but the shoulders are squared off. It's more 90 degrees. And so what that might indicate, it's a different time period. So we're kind of working on that, but as far as, being able to talk clearly about what we're seeing, type 1, type 2, it helps us out a lot. As far as comparison, these are Payan points from northern Peru. They look a lot like, they seem to be very similar to the Pine Ridge points with the really narrow little stem on them. Now these are dated pretty close to the Paleo period, back 11 or 12,000 years ago. And I think there was one phase in this site in the Payan area, and then another area that was dated a little bit later, but they're 10,000, probably 10,000 years old or earlier. Whether that applies to our Pine Ridge points, we don't know. And then in the Amazon, you have these very similar points show up with a narrow, the kind of a triangular blade, narrow stem. They're squared off or a little bit barbed on the shoulders. There's been some really, there's been a fair, some of these are found in the Amazon, but the dating, they're having really problems dating because they're not found in controlled excavations. They're either found in, they're found out of context. And then the sawmill points are pretty well represented in the catalog too. They're triangular bladed, but they've got really sharp, they've got really pronounced barbs on them that kind of droop down and things like that. But they do, this class here does have a narrow stem, just like the Pine Ridge points. And then we have some outliers. These kind of look like Pine Ridge points. They kind of look like sawmill points. If they're kind of in between or whatever, it's just, there's some really interesting research questions here as far as how that technology developed. So, the possibility is we started with Pine Ridge type 1 with the rounded shoulders. The point makers transitioned into more of a barbed shouldered point. That became possibly the sawmill point with the drooping barbs on it. And so that's possible. That's kind of, it's a possible tool that we can use to help date in progression, how old these things are and when they were used and how they were made. These low points are pretty much like nothing anybody has ever seen, technology-wise. This form here, and they're great big. I mean, you can see they're almost as big as your hand, and they're big, thick, heavy points. They're a lot. Most of them are really well made. They took a lot of time to make these because there's a lot of flint knapping technique that goes into producing one of these, and they seem to have a real cookbook of how to make these as far as how they were put together. We found some bifaces like this, and the first thing when I started seeing these bifaces, I was pretty sure from the very beginning these are probably preforms for these big low points. These kind of oval shaped bifaces are definitely as big as your hand, and they're thick. And from a flint knapper standpoint, it's an easy transition from a big, thick, well-made biface like this down to that big, thick low point. Okay, so another analysis question. And then we have these broken ones that were almost finished. We kind of know what they looked like. They were finished in the last stages, putting in the notches, because the notches were put in really aggressively with punches. Sometimes they broke, and we've got broken pieces that will document that as far as the flint knapping technique. So that's the late Paleo pre-ceramic period. We talk about what we kind of know as the Clovis period here in North America as the fluted biface horizon. Everybody kind of identifies the Clovis point because of the fluted base. That is, the base was set up and long thinning flakes were taken out of the middle of the base on both sides. That's kind of a technological ID for the Clovis point. And we see the fluted technology all the way from northern North America, all the way down to the tip of Argentina. And it all seems to fit within what we call the fluted biface horizon, which is that period of about 13,000 years ago to about 12,000 years ago. Pan-American. At this time, I mean, John, you can tell me if I'm totally wrong, but it seems like during this period of time, everybody except the folks out west of the Rockies, because they had a STEM technology, but everybody in North America, except for those guys, everybody in Central America, everybody in South America, were all making fluted points during this period of time. So we're, and here again, we're able to delineate various types within the biface technology. And the Clovis technology, the Clovis style point has its own look. There's another form which we call wasted fluted point. It's a fluted point, but it's got kind of a waist on it. It's incurved on the stem. And then the fishtail point has more of a triangular base. The shoulders are really pronounced, and the stem, it basically looks like a fish. And so we've got those three general types that we know are in the Americas during this period of time. And we know that all three of these types are found in August Pine Ridge, which I'll just talk about that in a second. Comparing what we find with other archaeology, there on the right, I think all of those points are from Argentina, if I'm not mistaken. In the middle there, all of those points are from Uruguay. So what I certainly didn't understand, I think John may have, is there is a lot of Paleo-Indian period occupation in South America. There's a lot of it all over South America. But unlike the Clovis looking points, these were all of the fishtail variety and some of the wasted variety. None of the bigger Clovis looking points generally show up in South America. So this is kind of just a sample from South America, what those guys look like, and plus what ours look like. And they're basically the same. Okay. So there's a little bit better shots of at least two of our samples. And John, I like this observation John made. When we find a broken point like this, when you start making claims or whatever, you need to kind of take some of the guesswork out of it or questions out of it. By finding these points that are made in mid-manufacture, what we can pretty sure is that these are not imported. They're not being made somewhere else and brought in. These are being manufactured, as we know, and we're pretty sure they were being made in Belize. So I like that slide. But when we talk about Clovis and fluted, we're talking about the behaviors. There are certain things in the North American Clovis tradition that will identify a Clovis point. So it's more looking for the behaviors and how these points were made to identify the people that were making them or the technology that they were using. So one of the characteristics of the Clovis, the North American Clovis tradition, is what we call overshot flaking, whereas as they're making the point, the flint knapper is taking great big flakes that run all the way across the point. They're overshooting the whole face of the point. That's the overshot flake. And you do see that it's somewhat common in North American Clovis, and we are seeing that technique in some of the Pine Ridge material as well. The fluted, the wasted fluted points are represented. That this group here is this is the most number of the three that we have. This wasted fluted variety, and probably by 3 to 1. This is the most common form that we see. Some of them have a little bit of Clovis characteristics. We see some overshot tries on some of these wasted points. Some of them are uniface. What I mean by uniface is they were made on usually Clovis points are made on a biface, which is a napping technique. But if a uniface point is made off of a flake, where the flint napper will take a core, big piece, knock off a flake, and then make the point out of that versus taking a small nodule and working both sides of it. That's a biface. So we see that characteristic in these wasted fluted points as well. And here's some good shots of it. You can see the one on the right. That's a uniface. You can see that flat bottom on it. That's the bottom of the big flake that was taken off of in the top. The top got worked. But you can see the fluting technology is consistent on all of them. And the cool thing is we find mistakes. We find broken pieces, which helps us when we talk about manufacturing on site. We can start figuring out, okay, here's the mistakes that were made. And so this sample here, where you've got a really well-formed blade, probably the last thing that we're doing is shaping the stem and putting those fluting flakes in the bottom. Sometimes, as I can attest, when you're trying to get those fluting flakes up at the bottom of the point, it will snap on you. And that's what happened here. I believe that these are fluting failures. So there again, these things were being manufactured on site, real live. They had the live technology there, and they were using it. And we have the other failures. I think on the left one here, they were trying to get the flute set up. It didn't work out. And I think this is the oddest thing I've seen. It was probably a practice piece where it's not put together very well, but they made a good run at trying to flute it, which is the stem on. That's a fluting flake. That's the reverse side of a fluting flake that took the blade in half. So it's really kind of neat to not only the whole points and everything are all beautiful and everything, but to really understand who these people are and how they were living and their, when you find their mistakes or whatever, that gives you a really good interpretation of human behavior.
Sure. Yeah. For the students here, would you point out to them where the flute is?
Yeah. When I talk about fluting, it's these long flakes that are, here's the blade, here's the stem. And the technique was to take these long flint napping flakes up the stem to thin out the base so they could wrap it up, put it on a haft, either a spear or something like that. Okay. Thank you. So yeah, these are just, kind of a repeat. These are the representative of the fishtail tradition from South America, found in August Pine Ridge. Here's more wasted, fluted points here. And then we don't have an entire unbroken Clovis style point, but from North American Clovis technology that we know a lot about, these are all, we think, forms of preparing a Clovis type point, although they were broken, okay? So North American Clovis technology is represented in August Pine Ridge as well. So we kind of get to why we think August Pine Ridge is so important. Typically when you talk about the human migrations in the Americas, these ancient people, 14,000 years ago, especially with fluted technology, a lot of the research kind of points to fluted technology first being applied in the eastern half of North America. Maybe I think that's where some of the older dates are on Clovis sites. The fluted technology did make its way one way or the other down the Isthmus of Central America, got to Central America, and then was routed all over both coasts of South America. But what is kind of left out is where does Middle America, where does Central America fit in all this? Obviously, it's here in this land bridge. So there was obviously, a fair amount of traffic. But was it one way? Was that technology and people communicating? Was it going both ways or whatever? And I think one of the important things is at least we have a bit of an indicator in the fluted technology during this period that the three styles of fluted technology were brought into at least this area of Belize, which is from a migration early American standpoint has not been, I can say I don't think this has ever been found in any site, all three types. When we come to the late Paleo period, and John, I learned a good term from John, is we use the term settling in. These early migrants were small groups. They were very mobile. They had to be. And so in periods of 1,000 or 2 years, they traversed all of North America, Central America, and were in the southern tip of South America. So their ranges were very large. Well, when you come to the late Paleo period, you probably have a bit more population, and these people are kind of learning they're learning their landscape, and they're not theoretically traveling thousands of miles across the landscape. So there's what we're seeing is regional variation, where in one area their technology kind of looks the same, and it's only in that area. So rather than thousands of miles, these regional technologies are maybe hundreds of miles, where people were communicating with each other, things like that. And this part was probably reciprocal, where people, the information, that technology, as far as teaching the guys 100 miles away, you run across them out there, and so you teach them how you're making your points. So theoretically, this period was a little bit more condensed in the late Paleo period. So just to wrap it up, I think we're more and more, we're more confident in the statement that August Pine Ridge is the most prolific known fluted biface site in Central America. When our catalog is somewhere north of 50 diagnostic specimens, there's no other report that matches that. Plus the recovery of all three, the Clovis, the wasted, and the fishtail point. To my, I am, all right. Wait. And this, yeah, let me, I'm sure our internet's gone. Anyway, so anyway, just to wrap it up. Yeah. If we can get you back to 5 minutes, one sec. And thank you very much.
I guess their system's not going to come back very
No,
quickly.
no, I'm done.
My apologies. But
You guys,
I didn't have the-
you need to figure this electricity stuff out.
I know, I'll have a talk with God
Anyway.
tomorrow.
We're, I'm done.
Okay. Okay, anybody, anyone on Zoom can still hear me? Okay, we just had a power cut here.
Yeah, we
So
can,
I'm afraid we're not going to get the rest of the presentation back, although people can hear you, so they can hear me.
yeah.
Do you want to keep doing it?
No, I'm done. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, hopefully you can hear me. I mean,
We can hear
The-
you and see
one of
you.
the key conclusions is that there's been no other site in Central America or really anywhere in the Americas where all three of these fluted point styles are documented at the range of 13,000, and this is the range of 13,000 to 12,000 years ago. So I think we're done. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody on the Zoom.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. That's life.
You got it all out?
I'd like to,
You got it all out?
Yeah.
just about, yeah,
You got
okay.
Any
We'll see how the Zoom recording comes out, but
minutes for question? Any questions?
are there any questions?
Yeah.
Right, on the timeline to all the transfer from the United States and down to Argentina, yeah, what time are we looking at?
Well, and as far as the fluted biface technology, for the most part, the fluted biface technology, it was done. It went away by about 12,200 years ago. After that, there was no more, nobody was making fluted.
We can correlate with my timeline with the rate of relative different.
I think that's,